Hi, my name is Jim Ferrero, and this is the first class out of 9 of the Citizenship Preparation series taught by Intercambio. And I'm going to go ahead and start off and share my screen. And if you have a question at any time, feel free to send me a text at 720-660-5791. All I ask is that you tell me who it is. Give me your name and ask your question, and I'll get back to you usually within a day. But that's one way you can get a hold of me. Our classes are taught um, every Wednesday at 6:30, and they start right on time. But I want to make sure that you understand that I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an attorney. Intercambio is providing this service, but we are not attorneys. If you need an attorney, I'll be the first person to tell you that if you have a question that requires a legal answer. But I've been doing this since 2014, and I've helped a lot of students go through this process. So usually I can answer the question directly. But if you do need a lawyer, I'll tell you. You need to have a copy of the handbook. The handbook is the Intercambio Citizenship Preparation Handbook. It's the one that says the United States of America Citizenship Preparation Class Handbook, has the Statue of Liberty on it. If you don't have a copy of that, um, by all means, call Intercambio and talk to Andrea Rodriguez, and she can get it for you. But to make sure you have the most current one, open the front cover and look at the right underneath where it says Intercambio Uniting Communities. There should be edition 6, 2024. The reason for that, why that's important, is April 1st of 2024, the USCIS changed the application form, made some significant changes, shortened it from 20 pages down to 14, rearranged it. The information that's in the current handbook, the edition 6, reflects those changes. So that's important. If you have an older handbook, edition 5, 4, 3, it will be talking primarily about the older previous form of the N400 application. Also, the fees changed April 1st. So the information in the older editions is not up to date. All right. If you don't have a copy of the handbook, by all means, reach out to Intercambio, talk to Andrea, and she can get that to you. You should also have a copy of the new N400 form. And again, you can look at the very bottom of the form in the bottom left-hand corner and look there for a date. It should say edition 04/01/24. 04/01/24 for the 1st of April 2024. It should only the copy of the form that you have in front of you that you're working on should only be 14 pages. If you have an older form, it'll be 20 pages, and that's not the current form. So those are two things to make sure you have the most up-to-date information. All right. So what can you expect from these classes? Well, the first thing you can respect is you're going to ask questions and get answers. And that's me. By sending a text or during the class asking questions. You're watching a video now, obviously, but you can still send texts to me and I will respond. And then, if you are attending class in person, you can just interrupt me and ask those questions. But that ability to ask questions doesn't end when the series of 9 classes is over with. You can ask me questions at any time, even after the classes are over, involving your naturalization or citizenship. You're going to learn about the form, the N400. And again, it's the new form that was published April 1st, 2024. And that new form, again, if you look in the bottom, is edition 04/01/24, and it only has 14 pages. And we're going to go through that. We'll actually cover that in the second class, but the information that's in the handbook is about that new form. And you're going to, of course, understand the 100 civics questions. Those have not changed. They're still the same 100 civics questions. And we're going to go through those over the course of the next 9 classes. You're going to learn the words that will be used in the reading and the writing tests, English reading and writing tests during your interview. And we'll go over those and explain how those reading and writing tests work. And you're going to learn what to expect at the interview. The more you know what to expect when you go in for the interview and the tests, the better you'll do. And it also helps you maybe be not quite as stressed. But we go into a lot of details about what you can expect when you go in to meet with the USCIS, talk about your application. You're going to learn how to submit your application, your N400. There are 2 ways to do that. And we'll talk about that in this class. But there are 2 ways to do it, and we'll go into detail about that. And what are the advantages? What are the pluses and minuses, the pros and cons? What are the good things and the bad things about both ways to submit your application? And then you can decide which is best for you. You're going to learn how to study and prepare for the interview by yourself. These 9 classes provide a lot of good information to help you be prepared, but you still need to study on your own. And I'm going to give you some ideas about how to do that. How can you get the most out of these classes? Well, attend the classes, attend all 9 of them, and if you wish, attend the next series after that. You can keep attending these classes as long as you wish. We teach these classes 4 times a year, and 4 times over a series of 9 weeks. If you're going to miss a class, let us know. Either you can text me or you can call Andrea Rodriguez at Intercambio and let her know you're going to miss. And if you do have to miss a class, then we'll forward you a link so you can watch the video, so you know what was covered in that class. How can you get the most out of the classes? Ask questions. Whether you ask questions during the class, when you participate live online, or you send me texts or whatever, ask questions. The questions you ask help shape these classes. Everything we talk about in these 9 classes started usually with a question I received from a student at some point. As I say, I've been doing this for 10 years. But if you have a question, chances are somebody else has the same question. So if you ask a question during class time, you're helping other people as well. When you do attend a class, by all means, and if I use a word or a phrase that you're not familiar with that word or phrase in English, stop me and ask me to explain myself, or ask me to say it a different way. And if you're watching this as a video, if you have a question about any word or phrase, send me a text and I'll explain it. Something else I recommend doing, whether you're watching the video or you're attending class, is take notes. And this may be something you're not used to doing, but have a pencil in your hand and a piece of paper and jot things down. If we're actually discussing the handbook and the handbook's open in front of you, write on the handbook a question you may have, or circle it. Or if there's something that doesn't make sense, circle it and mark it with so that you can ask questions about it. But take notes. And again, send me text. I love to get texts from my students, and because the kind of questions you ask are important. They're the kind of things that help us. So to refresh, the class is going to start at 6:30 every Wednesday. It usually lasts about an hour and a half. If you know you're going to miss a class, let me know. And there are videos available of each class, and you can watch them and ask questions. I love questions. If you don't understand a word or phrase I'm using, stop me if you're participating in a live class and ask me to say it a different way or explain what I mean. Or send me a text and take notes. I recommend you write in the handbook. That handbook is yours. Use it as your workbook to prepare for citizenship. If there's a word you don't understand, circle it. You can always Google the word to get a definition, but take notes. And if you have a question outside of class, between the classes, or at any point in time, just send me a text. All right. Starting in April 1st, well, actually, let me talk about the green card first, and then I'll get into that. There's a couple of good um, pieces of things you really should be doing now as you're preparing for citizenship that involve your green card. Maybe something that you've had stashed away in a drawer you haven't looked at in a while. Pull it out and look at it. Your legal permanent residence status that you have is permanent. But unfortunately, the card only lasts 10 years and then it expires. So look at the card. Some of the older cards, it's on the back. Some of the newer cards, it's on the front. Anyway, look at the card and look at when it expires. There are two dates: the date that you got your green card and the date it expires 10 years later. Take a look at that. If your green card um, um, has expired, you need to be aware of you need, or it's getting ready to expire in the next, say, 12 months. You need to do something about that, and I'll explain that later. Look at the address. Some of the old cards actually have an address on the green card. Newer ones don't. But look at consider the fact that, have you moved since you got your green card? Have you moved? If you have changed where you live since you got that green card, you need to have notified the USCIS and submit a change of address. And this is something you can do online. I'm going to go through uh, the handbook in a minute after the slide. And I'll show you where you can, the website where you can go to change it. You can do it online, it doesn't cost anything. But it's important that you change your address if you have moved since you got your green card. Why? Well, all right, if you send in your application and they get it and they're looking at it, the first thing they're going to do is pull up your file. And when they pull up your file, the addresses match, great, they're moving on. But if they pull up, they get your application with where you're living now, it shows on their application, and they pull up your file and the addresses don't match, it causes them, is this the same person? What's the problem? Whatever. So go ahead and notify the USCIS of your change of address before you even submit your application. You can do it online. The form is an AR-11, or you can do it online, and that's either way is fine. If you fill out the form, download and fill out the form and mail it in, or do it online, it doesn't cost anything, and you should do it. An important thing is, has your green card, is it getting ready to expire? As I was saying, there's two dates. The date you got your green card, that's important. You have to enter that information on your application, but the date it expires. And if that date expires is soon, like within the next 12 months, be aware of that. But when you do send in your application, they will give you an automatic 6-month extension on that expiration date. So you'll be fine. But your green card needs to be current when you submit your application. If it has already expired, well, unfortunately, you're going to have to apply for a new green card because your green card has to be current. Has your green card been lost or stolen? They should have told you this when you got it, but if you lose your green card, if you lose it or if it gets stolen, you need to notify the USCIS immediately. They're very concerned about keeping track of those cards, but you need to do that if it has been lost or stolen. You will have to send in a copy of both the front and the back with your application. So if you don't have your card, that's going to be a problem. When you go for your interview, you need to bring your green card with you and show it to them. So that's why it's important that you can put your hands on your green card. All right. Okay. The handbook. The handbook has a lot of good information in it. And go ahead, if you have your handbook, and open that up. And open that up, and let's turn to, first off, the table of contents. And this, we're going to go over the introduction now, but after that are the steps to citizenship, and we'll talk about that tonight or later on in this class. The 4 major requirements for citizenship to determine your eligibility are listed on part 3. Part 4 is how to apply, and we're going to talk about that later on in this class, this session. Part 5 is the process. It explains what are the stages that you'll go through in this process, and what kind of timing could you expect. Part 6 goes into detail about the new application form N400, the one that was just published April 1st. Documents. What documents do you need to have when you submit your form? And that's a real short list, luckily. And then what documents should you bring with you when you go to the interview? The interview itself. What can you expect? Part 9 are the civics questions with the answers. Part 10 are the English test words that they will use. And let me explain that. There's a short list of words that they will use for your English reading and writing. They won't use any other words except those words. So that's how you could study and be prepared for the English reading and writing. You know up front what words they're going to use for you to read out loud and to write when they say a sentence. 2 parts to that English reading and writing test. You have to read a sentence out loud, and you have to write a sentence that they dictate out loud to you. But in part 9, or rather part 10, we have all of the words. Now, some of those words are short. To, of, the, in, that sort of thing. And, some of the other words might be a little bit longer, but that's good. You have a chance to study those words, learn how to spell them, learn how to pronounce them, learn how to recognize them when you hear somebody say them out loud, and you know what they mean. So that's in part 10. Part 11 is some suggestions for how you can study and prepare for your interview. Part 12 is the oath of allegiance, the oath, O-A-T-H, oath. That's a word you may not have ran across before. It's kind of a funny old word, but an oath is a promise or a commitment. When you take an oath, you're saying something out loud and you're promising it. And the oath of allegiance is your oath of citizenship, what you are promising to our country to become a citizen. Part 13 talks about what should you do after you're a citizen. Part 14 is actually a discussion of voting, and then part 15 is the last part in the book. The very first part is an introduction. Intercambio is a non-profit organization. We're not making money from your tuition, the money you paid to attend the classes. Those just cover the expenses, the printing and whatnot. But it's a nonprofit organization. It's a community that we're building, and that's what the people who started Intercambio 25 years ago, what they wanted to do was unite the community together, the people who are the volunteer teachers as well as the students. The mission statement, and it uses some pretty hard English words here, but we ignite human potential by cultivating a world where people from different cultural backgrounds connect, communicate, and engage. That's the goal. Intercambio provides English language education, of course, but it also provides other resources. And these classes are one of those resources, as an example. This handbook that you're looking at now supports the 9 class sessions, but it also provides you a summation of the information that's available to you from the USCIS. It puts it all together into one place and hopefully presents it in a way that's easy to understand. The staff and volunteer of Intercambio are not immigration lawyers. We're not employed by the USCIS, the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services Agency. We're here to support your efforts to become a citizen as part of your community. How can you benefit from this handbook and these classes? Well, you'll get the most out of this handbook and these classes by reading the material and by attending the classes, either in person or by watching the videos, and most importantly, by asking questions. The whole process of becoming a citizen can seem hard, can seem intimidating. But keep in mind, the process is designed to be done by people just like you, by themselves. Without the vast majority of people do not use lawyers. And also be aware that the vast majority, over 9 out of 10 people who are doing this right now, pass the first time. Now, there are some resources that are available. There's 3 that I can recommend. One is the handbook. 2 are the classes, whether you attend in person or the videos. And then the third, which is probably the most important, is the government website for the USCIS, the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. That website is right here. All right? And it's important that you use the gov when you type it out. www.uscis.gov. Not .com or not .edu or .org, but .gov. That means it's the official site from the government. /N400. The N400 refers to the application form. But if you click on that and you open it, and I believe, that didn't work. All right, well, never mind. I'll try that a different way. But if you click on that, this is what the website looks like. You can't really see that, but it's got a lot of good information. One of the key things about the information is there's a big blue box. You can click on it to actually file the application online when you're ready, when you're prepared. There's a video for how to file online that's pretty good. The only complaint I have about the video or criticism is the guy talks a little fast. So you may have to back it up and play it a couple of times, but that's okay. There's places here you can click and download copies of the form, the N400 form, and a lot of other documents you can get, as well as the instructions. And there's a box that says questions about the N400, and you can click on that, and it's what they call a chat bot, and you can type in your questions, and it'll take you to the right place in the website to go. For example, you can type in change of address, and it'll take you right there. So you don't have to fumble around through the website to find out where to go. There's a blue box that says file online. You click on that and it just starts the process of going through that. But I recommend making sure you're really prepared and you've completely filled out the N400 form, the hard copy, the paper that you've got. You have that fully filled out because you'll need to know the answers before you start the process. There's a lot of good information on that. One of the things that as you go through this, you're gonna see words, maybe even in this handbook, You're going to see words you're not familiar with. An example, words like naturalization. And that's just an English word that means the process to become a citizen. Basic English skills are required to become a citizen of the United States. How good does your English need to be? That's a very common question I get asked. How good does my English need to be? Well, simple answer is if you're understanding most of what I'm saying in this class right now, if you can follow along, if you can frame questions in English and ask the question and understand the answer, or understand enough that you can keep asking questions like, what does that mean? Can you explain that, please? And you can help yourself. I give another example. If you can walk into a Target store or Walmart, for example, you walk into the store and you know you want to buy um, a T-shirt for your child. So you walk into the store and you see somebody who works there, and you can walk up to them and say, "Where could I buy a T-shirt for my child?" They'll give you directions on where to go. If you can understand the directions they give you, you can follow them, you can find the T-shirts, you can buy the T-shirt, walk out of the store with what you wanted. Your English is probably good enough. The USCIS right now is expecting you to have a basic level of English, which means you can conduct the entire interview with all of your answers in simple present tense English, simple sentences. As long as you can understand what they're asking and you can make yourself understood when you answer. That's how good your English needs to be. If you think you need to work on your English skills, Intercambio does, of course. That's their primary function, is to teach English. So you can contact them or you can call them 720-771-4986 and set up either one-on-one individual lessons or class lessons. They offer both. In the following pages, we're going to go through in the handbook and explain the steps to becoming a citizen. We're going to talk about the required documents, how to fill out the application form. We're going to go through what you can expect at the interview, and that's covered in this handbook, as well as in the classes. The classes are supported by the handbook. So after you attend a class, after you watch a video, you can go back and read for yourself and maybe understand a little bit better what's being covered in these different parts. So they're meant to be used together. Sometimes more information is provided in the class than is provided in the handbook, but the handbook is meant to support the classes. Does that make sense? All right. I'm going to go back to there's something else that's important, um, and that is if you're a man, uh, there's something else that's important to do before you turn in your application. The first one, of course, is make sure that your change of address, your address is current that you have on file with the USCIS. If you've moved 5 times, just send them your current new address where you're living now. That's important. That's one. The second one is if you're a man and you were in the country between the ages of 18 and 26, you needed to have registered with something called the Selective Service Agency. The Selective Service Agency is kind of an old-fashioned thing where they keep track of all able-bodied young men who could be called upon to be brought into the Army to help defend us in case of a war. Now, keep in mind that they have not actually done that since 1972. I think that was the last time they drafted anybody. But you still have to register. You can check to find out if you're registered because it's possible you're registered and you didn't even know it. Several states, Colorado, where I am right now, is one of those states where if you go in to get a driver's license between the ages of 18 and 26, they automatically register you with a selective service. So that's one way. Some schools register the young men when they turn 18 with selective service. So there's possibility that you were registered and you're not even aware of it. Or if you registered and you forgot, you can check. The way you do that is you go to this website, www.sss.gov. Again, the .gov is important. And when you go to that site and you click on it, you give them your social security number, your birth date, your name, and it pulls up, yes, you registered on this date, and here's your selective service number. Make a note of that because you'll need that in the application process. So that's important to check first, because if you have not registered when you were between 18 and 26, there may be a problem. So that's something to be aware of before you get involved with the application process. Okay. All right. I'm going to pull up something from the handbook now. And if you have your handbook, you can open it up and let's go to part 2. Okay. Part 2 is the steps to becoming a citizen. And these are the steps. The first step is getting ready to and submitting your application, your N400. The application process is discussed in actually part 6. And you can submit it by filling out the form and mailing it in with only a few documents in the fee. Or you can submit it online. And we're going to discuss both ways of doing that shortly in part 4. The next step after you turn in your application, whether you do it online or you mail it in, is the biometric. The USCIS may require you to go in and get a photograph and your fingerprints taken so they can pursue a background check. Or they may decide to use the fingerprints and photograph they have on file, but they'll let you know either way. But that's the biometric. And the biometric is just a word that refers to your photograph, your facial image of your face, and your fingerprints so they can do a background check. After you do that is the waiting process. And the wait is right now shorter than it was a year ago, anywhere from 3 to 8 months. You can look up on the website, that same website I showed you in the introduction. You can look up on that and you can key in the question in the chat box, current processing times, and it'll tell you. But that processing time is different for the different offices that you would work with the USCIS. For example, I'm in Colorado. The local USCIS office is in the southern part of Denver, Metro Denver. But there's like 39 different offices around the country that different states use. And depending on the office, your wait time is different. I have a friend who teaches citizenship in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and she was telling me the other day it's only 3 months down there. I think it's fast in Southern California as well. Other areas, other offices like Norfolk, Virginia is longer than it is here in Denver, for example. So it depends on which office you're dealing with. Now you need to be a resident, live in the area where you're submitting your application. Need to live in that area for 3 months before you turn in your application. That's one of the requirements. You need to have lived in the country for a set period of time, longer, 5 years. You need to have your green card for 5 years, unless you're married to an American citizen, and then it's only 3 years. So the wait time can vary. And as I say, here in Denver, where I am, it's 3 to 5, maybe as long as 8 months right now. It varies. So that gives you time to gather together the documents that are listed in part 7 of the book, but also give you time to prepare for the interview, study the civics, study your, it's probably not enough time to get your English perfect, but it doesn't have to be perfect. But that's the wait. Some people say that's the hardest part is the waiting. But it goes through. You can go through fine. You can continue to take these classes while you're waiting to help prepare you, practice for the civics, practice for the English, give you opportunity to ask questions in class. But you will get a letter then from the USCIS about 4 weeks before your interview, and that letter gives you the appointment time and the date and the place you need to go, and additional information that pertains specifically to you, what you need to know when you go for your interview. You'll get that letter for the interview. Try really hard to make sure you go at that time and that date. But if there's something like maybe you're out of country for a funeral you weren't planning on or something like that, or you're ill and you can't make that appointment, you can contact a phone number that's listed on that letter instructions to reschedule it, but try not to do that. Try to make that appointment. It's very important. But the interview is where you go into the USCIS and you walk in the door, you check in, you're met by the person at your appointment time. Might be a little late, but usually never right on time. But you'll meet the person who's going to interview you. Now, the person you're talking to at the interview, who will be doing the interview, doesn't wear a uniform. They're not part of they're not the same group of people who man the borders or at the airport, the Customs and Border Protection Group, police. They're certainly not ICE. It's a totally different group. These people you're interviewing with are just wearing regular clothes, but their specialty is, and they're the ones who have been looking at your application, their job is to make you a citizen. Their primary job is not to keep anybody from being a citizen. Their job is to make you be a citizen. So they're there to help you. They're there, their job is to make you a citizen. So keep that in mind. It's not a confrontational interview. It's not, it's usually a very positive, pleasant thing. They will ask you questions about your own application. In fact, the majority of the time during the interview is about your own application and questions that they may have. They may ask the exact same questions that you already answered on the application, or they may ask different ones or whatever about you. But that's the majority of the interview. A very short part of the interview is the civics tests and the English reading and writing test. Usually you get through that in 7 to 10 minutes. And then the rest of the interview, which could be as short as 20 minutes, satisfies the person, the officer with the USCIS, that you're who you say you are. You're the person who filled out this application, and you're qualified to be a citizen. Sometimes they go ahead and give you the oath right then, or other times they call you back in with other people who have passed, and they have a ceremony. It varies. It can go either way. And then after you become, you go through the ceremony, do this, and you've taken the oath of allegiance. Again, the oath is your promise, what you're promising to do when you become a citizen. After that, a couple of things. You can register to vote, and you can apply for a passport. Now, the new N400 form has a place that you can tell them, yes, please notify Social Security for me. And when you tell them and give them authorization, give them your permission to notify Social Security, they can take care of that for you. But if you're using an older form or you don't give them permission, then you would have to notify Social Security yourself. And in the handbook kind of gives you some ideas on how to go about doing that. Also, once you become a citizen, Any children you have that were born outside the country who live with you full time and are under 18 years of age, they become a citizen automatically when you become a citizen. That's pretty cool. So if you have two children who were born back home outside the country, and maybe you might have a child who was born here. Well, since they were born here, they're automatically a citizen. But those children that were born outside the country, and they may have their own green cards and everything, they become a citizen automatically when you become a citizen. And we'll go into discussing how that process works and what you can do to prove their citizenship. But that's kind of a cool thing. So, and then after you become a citizen, the important thing is to keep yourself informed and to vote. That's a very important thing to do. Um, we have a whole section in the handbook that the League of Women Voters has written for us about why it's important to vote. And I recommend you reading that. All right. The next thing I want to talk about is also, it's part 4 of the handbook. And there we go. And this is how to apply. How to apply for citizenship. There's 2 ways you can do that. 2 ways you can do that. The first way is you take the N400 form and you fill it out and you put it together and you assemble it with the documents you need to include. And there aren't that many. There's your marriage document, a copy of both the front and the back of your green card, and the fee is usually all you need to provide. But you put that together with your N400 and you mail it in. You can go online and depending on where you live, it tells you where to send it in. For example, I live in Colorado, and if I was sending in my N400, I would be mailing it down to Phoenix. But the address of where you go, there's an address where you can mail it and use the post office, or if you choose to have FedEx or DHL or UPS because you feel more secure with those courier services and paying a little bit more, there's a different address for them. And then there's a different address if you're the spouse or a current member or a former member of the US military. So all of that is included in the handbook about how to go about filling out online. When you fill it out online and you send it in, there's a form you can fill out at the same time and send it in, the G1145, and that allows that it's a 1-page form, and you can give them your smartphone where you can get texts, and you can give them your email address, and then as soon as they get your mailed in or your couriered in hard copy, then they will send you a notice that they've received it. It doesn't mean they're accepting it or that you've been approved. It just means they've got it. And you can feel good that at least they got it and it didn't get lost in the mail. Although I will tell you, in the 10 years I've been doing this, I've never had anybody have their application get lost in the mail. So it's a very rare thing that happens. But anyway, if you send in that G1145 with your N400, then they will send you a notice immediately that they've received it. And it makes you feel good, comfortable. At least you know they've got it. If you don't send in that G1145, they will send you a letter anyway. And that letter is important because it tells, you'll get that in the mail that they got it and they're working on it. But in that letter is a receipt number. And that receipt number you can use, and you can go online back at that website that's in the introduction. You click it in and you can use that letter. You can enter that receipt number and you can establish what's called a case status account, an online account. And that is how they will communicate with you and you can communicate with them about your application. And also, once you set up that case status account, you'll know a really good estimate on how long your particular processing time is going to be. And then they will provide updates if that processing time gets sooner or later. So it's something to check on as you're waiting. Most people don't get any questions or have any other issues during that wait time. But if they do need additional information from you, they can communicate what they need, or if they have a question about your application via that online account number. But they will also send you a letter too. All right. So that's if you mail it in. But you can also do it online. And if you choose to do it online, um, the uh, the the process is very straightforward. I still recommend strongly you completely fill out the N400, the form, because you need to have that in front of you because the questions are the same. And that way you're not thinking or having to scramble around to find answers or dig out. You've got everything all done and you can just enter the answers. So fill out the N400 in the form first, then try to submit it online and it goes much smoother. But the very first thing you do when you submit it online is it sets up that case status account for you. That's the first thing. And just like any online account number, you get an online account number that's tied to your email address or whatever, and you set up a password, and then that's yours. All right. Make sure you record that password you set up though and keep it. Um, so there's some advantages to doing it online and advantages to doing it, mailing it. We're going to talk about the fee in just a minute, but if you are asking for any adjustment to the fee, you have to do that by mailing in your application. You can't have them lower or waive your fee, which is possible based on your income, and I'll discuss that in just a few minutes. But if you do it online, you can pay with a credit card. Um, you know, everything is set up and they've got it immediately. That's the biggest advantage. But the online process walks you through it step by step. The mailing it online, you have other options to pay. And if you mail it in, you can pay by a credit card still. You submitted another form that gives them the authority to charge your credit card. I'll go into that. You can pay with a credit card or debit card. You can pay with a personal check. You can pay with a money order. You can pay with a cashier's check from your bank. So there's more options for paying if you mail in your application. If you do pay with a personal check, with a money order, or with a cashier's check, make sure on the back side you write down N400 and your A number somewhere on the back of that check. So that helps them make sure if the check gets separated from the application, they can put it back together with yours. So that's important. So the fee. Effective April 1st, 2024, the application fee changed. The fee for filing by mail is now $760, which is a little bit more than it was before. It was $725 before. But the fee to file online is cheaper, $710. So if you do it online, you save about $50. Why is it cheaper? Well, if you mail in your application, they have to take your mailed-in application and convert it to a digital file, and that costs them some money, and that's the real reason why it costs more. If you do it online, it's a little cheaper, $50 cheaper. But that total fee is for the complete application. It also covers the cost for the biometric. Those used to be two separate fees. But it is possible, based on your household income. That's the income of your whole house that you pay taxes on, your household income. It's possible to have your fee reduced or waived. All right. So effective April 1st, you may request a reduced fee if your documented annual household income is greater than 150% and not more than 400% of the published federal poverty guidelines, and these are published once a year. The guidelines change, but right now, and I'm recording this video in 2024, April of 2024, Um, these you can go to this website and you can find out what the poverty guidelines are. But as an example, for a family of four, if your income is between $46,800 and $124,800, that's a big range, $124,800. But if it's between that, you can have the fee cut in half down to $360. That's really important. If it's under 150%, if your income is less than that, say you're a single person and you make under $22,590, you can have the fee waived, which means you don't have to pay anything to become a citizen. And that fee goes up based on the size of your family. Again, if you have a family of four, if your income is less than $46,800, then you can have your fee waived, which means you don't have to pay anything. If you do that, though, you need to include a form I-912, which you can download from the website, the www.uscis.gov, and you include that with your application. But if your income is between 150 and 400, you don't have to do anything, because on the N400 form is a place where you identify that your income falls in that range. Okay. So this is complicated, I know. And if you need more help on this, we're going to cover it again in future classes. But also, when you're at the point where you're ready to apply, you can send me a text. And if necessary, I can work up a one-on-one personal Zoom call with you to go through it, to explain the fee structure and make sure you understand it right. But the bottom line is there are ways to have your fee cut in half, and there's even ways to have the fee eliminated if your income level is low enough. Again, if you're mailing or sending a hard copy, you can pay by cashier's check, money order, personal check. And again, you need to write N400 and your A number on the check. And you can pay by credit card. The acceptable credit cards they take are Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and Discover. Make sure your card has enough money in the available limit balance to cover it. The USCIS will reject your application if the card is declined and you have to start all over again, okay? They won't attempt to reprocess it a second time. You have to start all over again. If you do pay by a credit card and you're mailing in your application, you fill out a form G1450, and that gives its simple one-pager. And that form gives them authorization to bill the credit card. You give them the credit card number, you give them the expiration date, that little 3-digit code, the name on the credit card. Once they receive that, by the way, as soon as they process the payment, they destroy that authorization form. So that's not floating around the USCIS. So that protects the security. If you're filing online, you're going to be prompted to complete your payment information using the credit card. So make sure you have that credit card handy when you're applying online, because you need to type in the number, the expiration date, the name on the card, that little 3-digit code. No fee is going to be required if you're a current or spouse of a current military applicant, by the way. You're in the Army, or the spouse of somebody who's in the Army. When can you file? Well, again, you need to establish your residence, and we'll get into that as we're discussing other residency requirements or eligibility requirements. But one is you have to have had a green card for 5 years, or 3 years if you're married to a U.S. citizen, and you've been married to that U.S. citizen for all 3 years, and they have been a citizen for all 3 years. In other words, if you and your husband are both pursuing citizenship, and your husband gets their application or your wife gets their application processed and they become a citizen, you still have to wait the full 5 years, okay? But if they've been a citizen for at least 3 years and you've been with them, married the full 3 years, then you only have to wait 3 years to apply. But that date when you can apply, which is either 5 years or 3 years, you don't have to wait till that date. You can do it actually 90 days before that date, 3 months before. So you can do it a little early. If you need help calculating that, send me a text. But after you do submit your hard copy by mail or FedEx, you're going to get a letter. And again, in that letter is a lot of good information, but is this receipt number. And you'll need to use that receipt number when you go online. If you want to receive the email or the text message that acknowledges that they have received it immediately, you get a text message or an email, then you also have to include with that form a G1145, which you give them your phone number if you have a smartphone, and either an Android or an iPhone, and your email address. Okay. If you are requesting a reduction or you hope to do that, you have to do your application by mail at this time. At this time, the online application process doesn't allow for fee reduction or waiver. Okay. So again, all of that's a little complicated, how to calculate the fee and whatnot. But when you get to that point, you can send me a text. And if necessary, I can even set up a one-on-one Zoom private, and we can go through everything to allow, to explain it in greater detail. All right. So today, in this class, we talked about how you can reach me, how you can send me a text. We've talked about what you can expect from these classes. Also what you can expect to get out of them and how to get the most out of them. Primarily, ask questions. We talked about the steps in the handbook, the various parts of the handbook rather. We talked about in part 2 and in part 4 the details that are there, and also the 2 things you should be doing before you even send in your application. If you have moved, send in a change of address. If you have you're a man and you were in the country in the United States between the ages of 18 and 26, you needed to have registered for selective service. So if you have a question about any of those things or any of that was unclear or you want to know more about it, you can look in the handbook or send me a text and I'll explain it. But that's what we covered in this first session. And thank you for what you're doing. As a citizen myself, I need to let you know that I understand how hard this is, this whole process. I understand it causes you stress. I understand it's expensive. I understand you've got life, you've got a job, you've got a family, and this is adding more to that plate. So it's hard work, but it's worth it. It's worth it for you, of course. There's some benefits. It's worth it for your family, but it's worth it for all of us who are already citizens because you are making America a better place because you're here and you're becoming a citizen. You're bringing your culture, you're bringing your spirit, you're bringing your language, you're bringing everything which makes America a better place. And thank you. It means something to me. I appreciate it. Well, very good. That's our first class. Please join me for the next class. Again, classes are held Wednesdays at 6:30. I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you.